just to check it out. We'll take 1 secondito. Yes, we are live. Live from Nugaloka. Okay. Here we go. So we are going to chant Shri Guru Charana Padma. If that's all right with everybody. Here we go. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadmahu Padhanmave Savadhanamate Chakara Sadevai Eva Vaturi Ayahe Krishna Prabdi Ayaho Te Guru Mukapad Mapakya Chitili Kori Akaya Ranakori Omane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rate Ese Udamagati Chiprasade Pure Sava Patsa Takudandino Ye Janme Prabhu Sengi Ganre de Prakasita Prima Bhakti Aite Avijyavanasa Yete Vedegai Yakaracharita Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamadhanara Bandhu Lokanath Lokera Jivana Prabhu Kuladaya Deyamore Padachaya Evias Kusutri Bhuvana Evias Kusutri Bhuvana Jaya Prabhupada 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 Nama Shanupataya Krishna Kristaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Samaniti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nivasesha Shunyavani Ashajani Zatarane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Sivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Sivasati Gaurabhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Haribo, 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 Nichago, Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jai Om Vishnu Paramahansa Paravatakacharya also tell us that Shimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Chanana Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantagoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Param Seko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sidwaita Gadadha, Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopikapana Shyam Kund Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Ki Jai, Machuram Ki Jai, Jagannath Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Shrimati Vilasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Go Premananda Hari Hari Go. All glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namo Krishnadaya Krishna Prastaya, Putle Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvati Pachani Nipashesha Shunyapati Paschata Deshatani. Okay, so we're going to continue with our reading of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, reading from the 8th chapter of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's discussion with Srila Ramananda Roy. And we just got finished reading this very important verse yesterday. Kiva vipra kivanyasi shuja kenanoy ye Krishna tattva veta seguru hoy, which means it doesn't really matter what family you're born in, whether you're born in a family of Brahmins, whether you're born in a family of Shudras, whether you're born in a family of Malechas, whether you're born in the West or you're born in the East, or whether you're a male or a female or somewhere in between. If you know the science of Krishna, you can be guru. So what does it mean to know the science of Krishna? It means to practice Krishna consciousness, be realized in Krishna consciousness, and at least, minimum, Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krota Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udara Pashta Vegam, be able to control your tongue, belly, genitals, mind, anger, and words. And ultimately, to be able to control your tongue, belly, genitals, mind, anger, and words, you have to really realize your spiritual identity. Because each and every one of us has a spiritual identity. We are either passive adorers of the Lord, or we are servants of the Lord, or we are friends of the Lord, or we are parents of the Lord, or we are conjugal lovers of the Lord. Once you realize your spiritual identity, then there's no more identification with this body. It's not enough to simply say, you're not the body, because it's true. But simply knowing what you're not doesn't help you get detached from what you're not. Okay? You can say you're not, and it won't help you at all. You have to say what you are, you are, you are. That's the important thing. Okay? So find out who you are. Of course, first, you are a servant of Krishna and Radharani. Jivara Swarupohi Nitya Krishna Das. And the spiritual master, you're a servant of your spiritual master. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Not no, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Whatever you say, sir, whatever you say, or ma'am, your spiritual master happens to be a lady, yes, yes, yes. No is not, or impossible is not a word in a disciple's dictionary. We eliminate that. Okay, so now that I've frightened you all away, so now we're going to go and read the Caitanya Caritamrta and proceed from the point where we left off yesterday, and we're going to continue with the 8th chapter of the Madhya Lila, text 132. So let's share the screen. So, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. So kindly open my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Let's see, I'm trying to move this one little window. Hold on a second. Yeah, now we have moved it. Okay. So, we're beginning with text 132 in the 8th chapter of the Caitanya Caritamrta, and Ramananda Roy is beginning to speak here. Hold on a second. Rai kahe aminata tumi sutradara ye mata nachao taiche chahi nachi ba bara. Sri Ramananda Roy said, I'm just a dancing puppet and you pull the strings. Whichever way you make me dance, I will dance. And actually, that's the way a disciple feels. And if we read Srila Prabhupada's poem when he first came to America, let's see if I can pull it up. Prabhupada, make me dance. Okay. Then you'll see Prabhupada has the same mood. Let's see. Here it is. It's the Jala Dutta diary. I'm trying to. It's quite long. I'm just going to read the end of it. Here we go. So Prabhupada is praying and feeling very humble, because that is the quality of a pure devotee. Prabhupada says, only by your causeless mercy, referring to his spiritual master and Lord Chaitanya, will my words become pure. I am sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel gladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. O Lord, I am just like a puppet in your hands. So if you brought me here to dance, then make me dance, make me dance. O Lord, make me dance as you like. I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I have been designated as Bhaktivedanta, and now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhaktivedanta. Sign the most unfortunate, insignificant beggar, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, on board the ship Jaladutta on the 18th of September, 1965. It's many, many years ago. So, that is a pure devotee's mood. And we're going to hear more about this in the words of Ramananda Roy, or through the words of Ramananda Roy. So we see Srila Prabhupada had that same mood. So I'm actually just connecting Srila Prabhupada's mood to the mood of Ramananda Roy, who was actually preaching to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, Mora Jiva Bina Yantra Tumi Bina Dhari Tumara Mane Yeyute Tatai Uchari. My dear Lord, my tongue is just like a stringed instrument, and you are its player. Therefore, I simply vibrate whatever arises in your mind. Parameshvara Krishna Swayam Bhagavan Sarvasavatari Sarvakarana Pradhana. Ramananda Roy then began to speak on Krishna Tattva. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He said he is personally the original Godhead, the source of all incarnations, and the cause of all causes. Ananda Vaikuntahara, Ananda Avatara, Ananda Brahmanda Ihan, Subhara Hudara. There are innumerable Vaikuntha planets as well as innumerable incarnations in the material world. Also, there are innumerable universes, and Krishna is the supreme resting place for all of them. Sachidananda Tanu Brajendra Nandana Sarvaishvarya Sarva Shakti Sarvarasa Purna. The transcendental body of Sri Krishna is eternal and full of bliss and knowledge. He is the son of Nanda Maharaj. He is full of all opulences and potencies as well as spiritual mellows. And now we're going to hear the first verse of the 5th chapter of the Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadirada Govindaha Sarva Karana Karanam. Krishna is known as Govinda, is the supreme controller. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, for he is the prime cause of all causes. This verse from the Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, text 1. Vrindavanaya prakrita navina madana kama gayatri kama vijay yanra upasana. In the spiritual realm of Vrindavana, Krishna is the spiritual, ever-fresh Cupid. He is worshipped by the chanting of the Kama Gayatri mantra with the spiritual seed Klim. Very interesting. Cupid. Of course, Krishna is known as Madan Mohan. So Madan Mohan basically means he who bewilders, or he who attracts Cupid. So Krishna, who is this Cupid of this material world? Let's describe him for a second. He is a little boy with a bow and an arrow. And you see him on Valentine's Day, or you don't see him. He's an Anga. He's an Anga because Lord Shiva basically made him invisible. So he has no gross. How do you make him invisible? He burned him to ashes. It's a good way of making someone invisible. You burn their body, their gross body, and then they function in a subtle body. So he has a subtle body, you can't see him, and he's firing arrows at you all the time. And that's why you fall in lust. Because Cupid's arrows are focused on the senses and the sense objects, form, taste, smell. Not only falling in love with a boy or a girl or a cat or a dog, but you're falling in love with some food or a car, a fancy car that drives fast, where you put your pedal to the metal. So everybody has this different arrow of Cupid that's affecting him. So Krishna is called Madan Mohan, he who is the transcendental Cupid who attracts the Cupid of this world. In other words, Raso Varjam Rasopyasa Param Tishranivartate. That by being attracted to Krishna, then you can just look at Cupid and laugh at him. Just like when Cupid came to try to attract Krishna. When Krishna was in the incarnation of Narayan and the Nara and Narayan rishis, the twins, and Arjuna was there too. Arjuna was Nara. And Cupid came and he did his thing, and all the little Cupidettes came, the Cupidettes, they came, and spring came, and all that other nice things come that we're very attracted. We're so attracted to so many things in this world. It's spring, the beautiful ocean. Cupid affects us in many different ways. Oh, the ocean breezes, the mountains' majesty, So many things like that. Beautiful clouds, beautiful computers, beautiful computers. Anyway, whatever. So we were very attracted to all these different things, and that's Cupid. So Nara and Narayan rishis were not attracted by Cupid and his Cupidettes, and the Apsaras, in fact, they just yawned. So the point is, and of course they created their own Cupidette for Cupid to take back, and that was an Apsara, Urvashi. So anyway, so the point is that if we become attracted to the transcendental Cupid, who is Krishna, Madan Mohan, then we're no longer attracted to the Cupid in this world. We just yawn. Just yawn. Like Haridas Thakur. He was confronted with Maya Devi herself, who could bewilder the mind even of Lord Brahma. And Haridas Thakur just kept chanting, "Me does not disturb in the least." And she had all the attractive features of everything in this world. Not just all ladies. She had all the attractive features of everything or anything you could get attracted to in this world, including fat cars. So, Haridas Thakur just was untouched. And he gave her his mercy. He initiated her in Krishna consciousness. So, that's Madan Mohan, Krishna. Okay. But there is someone who can attract Madan Mohan. And that's a Mohini. Madan Mohan, Mohini. That is Srimati Radharani, who can attract the mind even of Krishna. Just like it's described when Srimati Radharani left the rasa dance. Krishna went and looked for her. He was lamenting. Imagine God is lamenting, depressed. Someone who has everything is depressed because Srimati Radharani is not there. That is Madan Mohan Mohini. Anyway, so we should be concerned with being attracted to Krishna, his service, the purity of Krishna consciousness, prasadam. Just like we take prasadam, we won't want to eat ordinary food. For example, I've been eating prasadam for the last more than 50 years. And if someone offers me unoffered food, it's just, there's no taste to it. No taste. You lose taste for everything that's not Krishna conscious. It's just like blah. It's like eating stale bread or like chewing on a sponge. Can you imagine eating a sponge? What is the taste of a sponge? I mean, sure, it's liquid. But what is the taste of a sponge? No taste. Anyway. So Vrindavana is described in the Brahma Samhita in the 5th chapter, text 56, as follows. Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kapa Taravo Druma Bhumish Chintamani Kanamai Toyam Amritam Kathaganam Nacham Kamanam Apivam Shipriya Saki Cheranandam Jyoti Param Apitad Ashvadhyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradbi Shavati Suravi Vyascha Sumahan Nimeshara Dakyo Navrajati Nahi Yatrapi Samayaha Bhoje Switadvipam Tamaham Iham Gulogam Mitiyam Vedantaste Santa Shiti Virala Chara Kati Paye. The spiritual realm of Vrindavan is always spiritual. That's good. The goddess of fortune and the gopis are always present there. They are Krishna's beloveds, and all of them are as spiritual as Krishna. In Vrindavana, Krishna is the supreme person and is the husband of all the gopis and the goddesses of fortune. The trees in Vrindavan are wish-fulfilling trees. The land is made of touchstone, and the water is nectar. Words are musical vibrations, and all movements are dancing. The flute is the Lord's constant companion. The planet Goloka Vrindavan is self-luminous like the sun and is full of spiritual bliss. The perfection of life lies in tasting that spiritual existence, and therefore everyone should cultivate its knowledge. In Vrindavan, spiritual cows are always supplying spiritual milk and cheese. Not a single moment is wasted there. In other words, there is no past, present, or future. Wow. That doesn't mean that everyone's just like frozen. It's not. But everything's the eternal, in one sense, it's the eternal present. It's hard to explain if you don't remember or you haven't been there. Not a single particle of time is wasted. Within this material universe, the devotees worship the transcendental abode as Goloka Vrindavan. Lord Brahma himself said, "Let me worship that spiritual land where Krishna is present." This transcendental Vrindavan is not appreciated by those who are not devotees or self-realized souls, because this Vrindavan Dham is all spiritual. The pastimes of the Lord there are also spiritual. None are material. According to a prayer by Srila Narottama Das Thakur, Pratana, number 1, Arakabe nitai chandera korona hoibe samsaravashana mora kabe tucha hoibe. When will Lord Nityananda have mercy upon me so that I can realize the uselessness of material pleasure? It's useless. It's like trying to suck some nectar or taste out of some gum that has been chewed for 10 years. That's called punas char vita char vananam. Chewing the already chewed. It doesn't do you any good. Trying the same thing over and over again and thinking you're going to get a different result. Insanity, according to the great Acharya. So, that great Acharya, of course, is Einstein. Vishaya Chariya Kabe Shudahame Mana Kabe Hama He Rava. Sri Vrindavana, when will my mind be cleansed of all material dirt, so that I will be able to feel the presence of spiritual Vrindavana? Rupa Raganath Pade Hoibyakuti Kabe Hama Bushhava Se Yugala Piriti. When will I be attracted to the instructions of the Goswami, so that I will be able to understand what is Radha and Krishna, what is Vrindavan? These verses indicate that one first has to be purified of all material desires and all attraction for fruitive activity and speculative knowledge if one wishes to understand Vrindavan. Oh my God, what a heavy prerequisite. Well, it's easy to be purified of all material desires and attraction for fruitive activity and speculative knowledge. Very easy. You just give your heart to Krishna. And Krishna is represented. And that's it. What will please Krishna? I just want to please you, Krishna. Krishna, you're so attractive. I just want to please you. Or even if I don't want to please you, I want to come to the stage of pleasing you. Or even if I'm not in the stage of wanting to come to the stage of pleasing you, I want to come to the stage of wanting to come to the stage of pleasing you. In reference to the words aprakrita, navina, madana, aprakrita refers to that which is the very opposite of material conception. Aprakrita basically means it's not manifest in this material world. It's not material. The Mayavadis consider this to be zero or impersonal, but that is not the case. Everything in the material world is dull. It is a dull, boring place. But in the spiritual world, everything is alive. The desire for enjoyment is present both in Krishna and his parts and parcels of the living entities. In the spiritual world, such desires are also spiritual. No one should mistakenly consider such desires to be material. In this material world, if one is sexually inclined, enjoys sex life, enjoys something temporary, and it causes misery. His enjoyment vanishes after a few minutes. However, in the spiritual world, the same enjoyment may be there, but it never vanishes. It is continuously enjoyed. In the spiritual world, such pleasure appears to the enjoyer to be more and more relishable with each new feature. But it's not the same as the sex pleasure in this material world, which is caused by those rubbing of the different senses or touch or whatever, That's all it is. Just like in the mature world, you rub some food on your tongue. If you have a lollipop, you take especially a red lollipop, you rub it on your tongue for enjoyment. And that's the enjoyment of this world. And then you get tired. You get tired, boga, tyaga. Then you have to stop doing it for some time, and then after that, you do it again, and then you stop. It's like waking, sleeping, waking, sleeping. For example, it's not pleasurable to sleep if you're wide awake. And then you sleep when you're tired, and it's pleasurable. Oh, then you wake up again. Anyway, you have to face the whole material world again. In the material world, however, sex enjoyment becomes distasteful after a few minutes only, and it is never permanent. Because Krishna appears very much sexually inclined, he is called a new Cupid in the spiritual world. There's no material inebriety in such desire. I mean, contamination. However, Gayantam Trayatehasmad Gayatri Tvam Tatasmata. One who chants the Gayatri mantra is gradually delivered from the material clutches. In other words, that which delivers one from the material entanglement is called Gayatri. An explanation of the Gayatri mantra can be found in the Madhya Lila chapter 21, text 125. So like mantra frees your mind. Gayatri frees you. Kama Gayatri mantra rupa. Haya Krishna rasarupa. Sarda chabisha akshara tara hai. Se akshara chandra hai. Krishna kari hudai. Tri jagat kaila. Kama maya. The Kama Gayatri mantra is just like a Vedic hymn, but is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. There's no difference between the Kama Gayatri and Krishna. Both are composed of 24 and a half transcendental syllables. See Madhya Lila 21, 125 to 29. The mantra depicted in the letters is also Krishna, and the mantra rises just like the moon. Due to this, there is a perverted reflection of desire in human society among all kinds of living entities. In the mantra, Klim Kamadevaya Vidmahe Pushpavanayadimi Tano Nanga Prachodayat, Krishna is called Kamadeva, Pushpa, and Ananga. Kamadeva is Madan Mohan, that's Krishna, the deity who established our relationship with Krishna. Pushpana is he who carries an arrow made of flowers, is Govinda, the personality of Godhead who accepts our devotional service. And Ananga is Gopi Jana Balabhaya, who satisfies all the gopis. This is the ultimate goal of life. So in other words, the mantra has the Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana built in. Okay? Madan Mohan, that's the presiding deity of Sambandha. And Govinda is the presiding deity of Abhideya. And Gopinath is the presiding deity of Gopi Jana. Gopinath, Ananga, that's another name of Cupid anyway, is the presiding deity of Prayojana, the ultimate goal of life, which is going back to Godhead. This Kama Gayatri, Klim Kamadevaya Vidmahi Pushpavanaya Dhimahi Tano Nanga Prachodayat, simply does not belong to this material world. When one is advanced in spiritual understanding, he can worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead with his spiritually purified senses and fulfill the desires of the Lord. Manmana, now here's a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyashimam namaskuru mami vaishasi sacham te patijane priyosime. Always think of me and become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me, thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. That's the Bhagavad Gita, famous verse, 18th chapter, text 65. In the Brahma Samhita, in the 5th chapter, text 27 to 29, it is stated, Athavinu ninandashatrai murti mai gati Puranti pravisheshao mukhavjani swayambhuvaha Gayatrim gayatastasmad harigatya sarojaja Sangritaschari guruna dvijatam agamatta tatha Traya prabhudota vidhi vigata tattva sagara Tushtava Veda Sarena Stotrena Nena Keshavam. Then Gayatri, mother of the Vedas, having been manifest by the divine sound of Krishna's flute, entered the lotus mouth of Lord Brahma, the self-born, through his 8 ear holes. In other words, he had 4 heads, therefore 8 ear holes. Thus the lotus-born Brahma received the Gayatri mantra, which had sprung from the song of Sri Krishna's flute. In this way he attained the twice-born status, having been initiated by the supreme primal preceptor, God himself. In other words, God, Krishna, was his Gurudev. Enlightened by the recollection of that Gayatri, which embodies the 3 Vedas, Brahma became acquainted with the expanse of the ocean of truth. Then he worshipped Sri Krishna, the essence of all the Vedas, with a hymn. That's the Gayatri mantra. The vibration of Krishna's flute is the origin of the Vedic hymns. Lord Brahma, who was seated on a lotus flower, heard the sound vibration of Krishna's flute and was thereby initiated by the Gayatri mantra. Wow. So the Gayatri mantra, in one sense, is the sound of Krishna's flute. Okay, we'll continue a little bit. This is really amazing, intimate stuff. Purusha yoshet kiva stavara jangama sarva chitakar shakha sakshat manmata madana. The very name Krishna means that he attracts even Cupid. He is therefore attractive to everyone, male and female, moving and inert living entities. Indeed, Krishna is known as the all-attractive one. So, of course, that's the etymology of the word Krishna. Krishna. Krish means to attract, like a tractor. Na means short for Ananda, or unlimited bliss, unlimited happiness, or a negation of suffering in the material world. Just as there are many orbs, that's planets, in the material world called stars or planets, in the spiritual world there are many spiritual planets called Vaikuntha Lokas. The word Vaikuntha Loka means a planet where there's no anxiety. Pretty good. The spiritual universe, however, is situated far, far away from the cluster of material universes. Material scientists cannot even estimate the number of planets and stars within this universe. They are also incapable of traveling to other stars by spaceship. According to the Bhagavad Gita 8:20, there is also a spiritual world. Another famous verse. Parastasmat tvabaddo vyakto vyaktat sanatana yaksa sarveshu bhuteshu nasyatsu na vinashyati. Yet there is another unmanifested nature which is eternal and is transcendental to the manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. Thus there is another nature which is superior to material nature. The word bhava or swabhava refers to nature. The spiritual nature is eternal, and even when all the material universes are destroyed, the planets in the spiritual world abide. That means they remain. They remain exactly as the spirit soul remains even after the annihilation of the material body. That spiritual world is called aprakrita. That means that which is not manifest, okay? The anti-material world. This is an anti-material world. In this transcendental spiritual world or universe, the highest planetary system is known as Goloka Vrindavan. That is the abode of Lord Krishna himself, who is also all spiritual. Krishna is known there as Aprakrita Madana. That means the non-material Cupid. The name Madana refers to Cupid, but Krishna is the spiritual Madana. His body is not material like the body of Cupid in this material universe. Krishna's body is all spiritual. Sat, Chit, Ananda Vigraha. So Sat means eternal. Chit means full of knowledge, and Ananda means full of bliss or happiness, and Vigraha means form. Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, text 1. Therefore, he is called Aprakrita Madana. He is also known as Manmata Madana, which means that he's attractive even to Cupid, or Madan Mohan, which is the same thing. Sometimes Krishna's activities and attractive features are misinterpreted by gross materialists. He accused him of being immoral because he danced with the gopis, but such an accusation results from not knowing that Krishna is beyond this material world. His body is Satchidananda Vigraha. Again, Brahma Samhita 5.1, completely spiritual. There's no material contamination in his body, and one should not consider his body to be a lump of flesh and bones like our body. The material philosophers conceive of Krishna's body as material, and this is an abominable, grossly materialistic conception. Just as Krishna is completely spiritual, the gopis are also spiritual, and this is confirmed again in the Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, text 37. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabis Tavir Yeva Nijarupatya Kalabihi Golovin Eva Nivashakilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purasham Tamaham Pachami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord. He resides in his own realm, that means place. Goloka with Radha, who resembles his own spiritual figure and who embodies the ecstatic potency Ladini. Their companions are her competence, who embody extensions, that means they're her expansions of her bodily form, and are imbued and permeated with ever blissful spiritual ras. Ras means taste. The gopis are also of the same spiritual quality, Nija Rupatya, because they are expansions of Krishna's pleasure potency. Neither Krishna nor the gopis has anything to do with lumps of matter in the material conception. In the material world, the living entity is encaged with the material body, and due to ignorance, he thinks that he is the body. Therefore, here the enjoyment of lusty desires between male and female is all material. One cannot compare the lusty desires of materialistic man to the transcendental lusty desires of Krishna. Actually, in the spiritual world, it's not really lust, it's love. It's an exchange of pure love. In the material world, the lust or the romantic relationship is basically an exchange of exploitation in essence. Of course, that is mitigated to a certain sense, to a certain degree, when one is married and one takes a vow, and to please Krishna, one sticks to the vow, and that dovetails that lusty desire in Krishna's service. That's a dovetailing, okay? Unless one is advanced in spiritual science, he cannot understand the lusty desires between Krishna and the gopis. In the Caitanya Caritamrta, the lusty desire of the gopis is compared to gold. The lusty desires of materialistic man, on the other hand, are compared to iron. At no stage can iron and gold be equal. The living entities, both moving and non-moving, are part and parcel of Krishna. Therefore, they originally have the same kind of lusty desire as his. But when this lusty desire is expressed through matter, it is abominable. When a living entity is spiritually advanced and liberated from material bondage, he can understand Krishna in truth, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita in the 4th chapter, text 9, very important verse. Janma karma chami divyumevam yovita tatvata chakra deham purna janma naiti mameti sojana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. When one can understand the body of Krishna as well as the Lord's lusty desires, one is immediately liberated. So try to understand that. Then you're immediately liberated. A conditioned soul encaged within the material body cannot understand Krishna. You can begin to be attracted by Krishna. You would want to attain Krishna. You can make spiritual advancement. And you can have a small understanding of Krishna, just like when the sun comes up in the morning, you can see some shadows and some things out there if you're out in the forest. But then when the sun fully comes out, then you see everything in its true colors. So it's not an all or nothing thing. When you become Krishna conscious, it's a gradual process. Gradually things get lighter, 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 lighter. Huribol! And then Krishna comes and shakes his hands with you. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Manushanam Sahasreshu, another important verse, 7.3. Kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tatpataha. Out of many thousands among men, 1 may endeavor for perfection. Out of those who achieve perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. But by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya, don't worry. You will achieve if you stick to Krishna consciousness throughout this lifetime, guaranteed. By Prabhupada. The word siddhye indicates liberation. Only after being liberated from material conditioning can one understand Krishna. When one can understand Krishna as he is, tatvataha, one actually lives in the spiritual world, although apparently living in the material world, the material body. This technical science can be understood when one is actually spiritually advanced. In his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that's Nectar Devotion 1-187, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Ihi asha hare rashe karmana madasagira nikalashvapiva nikalashvapyapastasu jivan mukta sauchate. When a person in this material world desires only to serve Krishna with love and devotion, he is liberated, even though functioning within this material world. As the Bhagavad Gita, the 14th chapter, 26, confirms, Mam chiyopi avicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samati chaitan bambuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service unfailing in all circumstances at once transcends the modes of material nature and comes to the level of Brahman. Simply by engaging in loving service of the Lord, one can attain liberation, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 18:54, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatanda Shochati Dikankshati. A person who is highly advanced in spiritual knowledge and who attains the Brahma Bhuta, Srimad Bhagavatam 4:30-20, stage, neither laments nor hankers for anything material. That is a stage of spiritual realization. Let's see how much more we have in this purport. Ooh, quite a bit. Oh no, maybe we finish. It's quite a bit. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur considers the Brahma Bhuta stage in two divisions, Swarup Gata and Vastu Gata. One who has understood Krishna in truth but is still maintaining some material connection is known to be situated in his Swarup, his original consciousness. When that original, in other words, it's intellectual, he understands it, he's identifying with it, but when that original consciousness is completely spiritual, it's called Krishna consciousness. One who lives in such consciousness is actually living in Vrindavan. He may live anywhere, material location doesn't matter. When by the grace of Krishna one thus advances, he becomes completely uncontaminated by the material body, and at that time factually lives in Vrindavan. That stage is called Vastu Gata. Sarup Gata means to realize your spiritual nature, and Vastu Gata means to live in that place with your spiritual nature. Anyway, one should execute his spiritual activities in this Rup Gata stage of consciousness. He should also chant such spiritual mantras as Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya and the Chinmayi Gayatri, Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopichanda Vallabhaya Swaha, and Klim Kamadevaya Vidmahe Pushpa Banaya Dhimahi Tano Nanga Prachodayat. But don't chant those unless you're initiated. These are the Kama Gayatri or Kama Bija mantras. One should be initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and worship Krishna with these transcendental mantras. As explained by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the previous verse and the current verse, Vrindavanaya Prakata Navinna Madana Kama Gayatri Kama Vijay Anopasana Purusha Yoshit Kiva Stavara Changama Savachita Karshaka Sakshad Manmata Madana. A person who is properly purified and initiated by the spiritual master worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna by chanting this mantra, the Kama Gayatri, with the Kama Bija. Bija means the seed, Klim. As the Bhagavad Gita 1865 confirms, one should engage in transcendental worship in order to be fit for being attracted by Krishna, the all-attractive. Again, this verse, 1865. Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyajimam namaskuru mami vaishasi sacham te pratijane priyosi me. Always think of me and become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage unto me, thus you come to me without fail. I promise you this because you're my very dear friend. Since every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna, Krishna is naturally attractive. Due to the material covering, one's attraction for Krishna is checked. One is not usually attracted by Krishna in the material world, but as soon as one is liberated from material conditioning, he is naturally attracted. And actually, by association with the pure devotee, one begins one's attraction towards Krishna. Therefore, it is said in this verse, Sarva Chita Kar Shaka. Everyone is naturally attracted by Krishna. This attraction is within everyone's heart, and when the heart is cleansed, that attraction is manifested. Cheto Darpanamarjam Bhava Mahadvagni Nirarpanam Caitanya Caritamrta Madhya Lila, 20th chapter, text 12, which is also part of the first verse of the Shikshashtaka. Anyway, chock full of knowledge. Do anyone have any questions at this point? We will allow you to ask some quick questions. I will allow you to unmute yourselves. A lot of very interesting information. A lot of interesting information about the spiritual world. Okay, so we have a questions from Kaur. You can unmute yourself. Just ask your question. You have to unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavad. My humble obeisances to you and all the Vaishnavas present here. So the question is, Prabhuji, as it is said in Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, that as in when you start devotional service, right, you become detached from the people, you become detached from the material things and all.
Yes.
And at the same time, it is also mentioned that you should develop a love for Krishna, develop a love and then, so that you can build some relation.
Right.
So now these are kind of a little bit contradictory things. Why? Because once you become detached, like you lose your affection, you lose, you try to lose every attachment you have for the people, things and everything. So you become kind of okay, if it happens, it's okay. It doesn't happen, it's okay. So in that stage, how will you develop a love?
Okay, that's very good. Good question. I think that's a very appropriate question. Actually, when you come to Krishna consciousness, you become detached from using people for your own satisfaction. But you become more attached to loving people because you see them as what? Connected to Krishna. When you see the sambandha, or the connection between everyone, and that includes your family members, then you become more spiritually attached to them. In other words, you want to do the best thing for them. Just like before I came to Krishna consciousness, my attachment for my mother was that how can I get whatever I want from my mother? How can I manipulate my mother so she will buy me anything I want? That's the proper attitude of the son. You know, my mother's supposed to feed me. My mother is supposed to serve me. So as soon as I became Krishna conscious, then the attachment became transformed. How can I make my mother Krishna conscious? How can I help her? In other words, the love is there. The concept of material attachment is not actually attachment. It's attachment to your own satisfaction, your own self. So that's an interesting misconception that people have when they think that they're attached to someone else. They're attached to someone else because of what it does for them. And that's not really attachment to someone else. That's attachment to yourself and objectifying, using others for... So in other words, it's not really attachment. So I find that becoming Krishna conscious, you become more attached to people and more loving with people because you want to do the right thing. You know the right thing. You want to help them. You want them to be Krishna conscious. Before, I was just thinking, what can I get from people? What can I get from my mother? What can I get from my father? Just like when I was young, I went to my father and said, buy me a sports car. And I was thinking, how can I get my father to buy me a sports car? Of course, now I just go to the disciples and ask them to buy me sports cars. But anyway, that's a different subject matter. So, I'm just joking. That's just a joke, half a joke. Anyway, so that's really not attachment. That's detachment. So in other words, before you become Krishna conscious, you are really detached from everyone and simply attached to your own satisfaction. But when you come to Krishna consciousness, and then another point is, as far as the objects of this world, a devotee becomes more attached to them for using them in Krishna's service. That's called yukta vairagya, because he understands to whom everything belongs. So if you see things from the right perspective, it's not that you become detached, you become more attached because you see everything yastu sarvani bhutani atma naivanu pashati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tatona bkgoswami. You see everything is connected to Krishna. Or, yeah, that's right, yastu sarvani bhutani. That's the verse. Yeah, you don't hate anything or hate anyone, but you see everyone is connected to Krishna. Yomam pashati sarvatra sarvam chamayi pashati tashaham na pranashami sacha me na pranashati. In other words, that's another verse from the Bhagavad Gita. First verse was from the Upanishad, second verse was from the Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, the Mayavadi conception is you just become detached and you don't care. I don't find that has happened in my own life. I find that I care more. I mean, even when I read the news, which is really traumatic nowadays, especially if you're in America, I read the news and I just become more attached for the welfare of people in the world. I hear about people suffering in this part of the world, that part of the world. People have COVID, and I'm concerned because now I see them all as my brothers and sisters. And I'm concerned with all the animals, just like we have. Sometimes I have animals in my house. Ants come in the house. I don't have pets, so like the ants come in my house or the spiders, I feel very attached to them. And I'm very unfortunate that the people who come and clean my house, some disciples, they don't like my spiders and they don't like my ants, and they put them outside. But I love my ants and my spiders and my cockroaches. Anyway, so that's the point. There's more attachment. There's more attachment, but it's real attachment for the benefit of the object or the person that you're attached to, and for the benefit of Krishna. So the question was actually a very good question. If we're simply becoming aloof from the world, that is not Krishna conscious. Aloof or neutral. The neutral stage is actually impersonalism, where we just say nothing matters, strawberry fields forever, like that song of the Beatles, nothing is real, strawberry fields forever. That's really not what Krishna consciousness is. But you become detached from material things. Like your material goals that you had before are no longer that attractive, if you become Krishna conscious. But your spiritual goals become attractive. So it's not an absolute detachment. You become attached to spiritual things. Like previously your goal might have been, making a lot of money, and being famous or whatever like that. But then you see all these things are futile. And you simply become attached to pleasing Krishna, and then you're in love with Krishna. It's just like if someone's in love, they don't become detached, they become more attached. But they become detached from everything that is not connected with that loving affair. Right? When you're madly in love, because I've never been madly in love, Thank God. It's so stupid to be madly in love in this material world. It's just like, I mean, it's just like the stupidest thing I've ever heard of it. Anyway, so it is to be madly in love with, to be attracted to someone else's body. And the body is simply bile, mucus, and air. So, anyway, but we're attracted to a person's soul to trying to help them. That's the point. So anyway,
Sure.
once madly in love in this material world, then you forget about everything else. So when you're madly in love with Krishna, then everything focuses on pleasing Krishna and pleasing everybody as a part and parcel of Krishna. So good question. Okay, so we're going to end. That was just one
Thank,
question.
thank you so much. Actually, I have
Yeah.
one question, but I will ask tomorrow.
Oh, wait, all right, one more question. Quick question.
Okay. So in Gurma, so in ISKCON, there are so many spiritual masters, right? So
Yeah.
myself and my wife, it is actually we are at the stage of we want to get initiated, but we are confused that where we should go and how we should approach to spiritual master and um, because there are many. So how we should go for about it, choosing the
How,
spiritual master.
how you should decide? Well, you should investigate which spiritual master resonates. Just investigate them, how they present Krishna consciousness, because every spiritual master will present the same Krishna consciousness, but according to different circumstances for different people. I mean, there's different cultures, for example. Like if you were Chinese, you'd probably want to approach someone who presented Krishna consciousness in a Chinese way, you know, using chopsticks or something. But anyway, so if you were Chinese, but so I mean, one has to approach a spiritual master whose teachings are the same as Prabhupada's, but presented in a way that resonates or is compatible with your particular nature and practical, and someone who you can have contact with, and like that. So, because we have this internet, one can reach out all around the world to find spiritual master. There's no geographical. Where are you located?
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, Charlotte. Okay, I'm
Yes.
in Raleigh. I'm in Hillsborough, North Carolina.
Yeah, we visited the temple a couple of times.
Yeah, come to the temple often, and we have some nice devotees in Charlotte. We have a nice sangha. Abhirama Saka, Abhirama Saka there.
Yeah, yeah,
He's one of our good friends, and you can take
yeah.
guidance from him, from Abhirama Saka. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to Prabhupada. Haribol.